All right, good morning, everybody. Thank you all for joining us today for the first episode of our monthly online talk show, Fintech Fireside Asia. It is a show where we bring you some of the brightest minds from the fintech space in Asia and sit them down for a casual chat. I'm Vincent, your host. The show is produced by the Fintech News Network and made possible thanks to Finastra. Today, we're joined by Calvin Choi, the chairman of AMTD Group, as our first guest. Hello, Calvin. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, Vincent. Good to
Hi.
be here with you
So,
today.
yeah, glad you could be here. In the recent months, your team has been keeping my team really busy with a flurry of announcements, from launching your virtual bank in Hong Kong, Airstar Bank, to your recent acquisition spree of in Singapore, which includes well-known names like PolicyPal, FOMO Pay, Capbridge, and also your DigiBank application in Singapore with funding societies SP Group and Xiaomi as well. So, Kevin, for the audience members who are tuning in today, who may or may not be so familiar with the AMTD Group, can you give us a rundown of your company and yourself?
Sure. I'm, of course, delighted to do so. Once again, thank you, Vincent, to offer this opportunity. AMTD is a company founded by Chun Kong Group. Now we call it the CK Hutchison Group back in early 2000. So very interestingly, even at the beginning, the fintech power have been actually built into the DNA of AMTD. So actually the four words AMTD actually represent the four letters at minus times divide. So number
Ah,
correlation, big data, that's how Chun Kong originally, when they think of this overall venture to start with. So they started off with also inviting from Australia, the Commonwealth Bank of Australia, and together with Chun Kong, creating this hopefully to become an independent wealth manager, but really
mm,
leveraging on all the big data from Chun Kong and Hutchison. So that's the original of AMTD. So over the years, a bit of history, the company have been running in a very stable way, but I would not say that is a very exciting way because it's somehow the ideas of doing using big data marketplace
mm,
have been all very right, but then probably a little bit too early. So sometimes the best we need to wait till the last, right? The early days, been very offline. So over the
mm,
years, a little bit about my background. So I've been a long
mm,
time trained to become a professional accountant. So been with the accounting industry for quite some time. But soon afterwards, instead of looking into historical, I want to create the futures, right? I want to look into more forward-looking and creating values for clients, for people, for myself. So I joined investment banking. I joined Citigroup, and with Citi for quite a bit of years, focusing into investment banking, but also a bit into strategy. Being named as a China specialist for Citigroup in China, so in charge of strategic alliance. But later on, joined UBS, also involving in investment banking, but also involved a bit into also the global family office setup. But on an overall basis, really finding the right opportunity, the right platform with the right people to start something hopefully extraordinary. So I think towards the end of 2015, 2016, I got the opportunity to talk up the leadership of
mm,
AMTD. Really thinking into it as to I want to get the best out of it, but to create something even better out of what's the existing for AMTD at that time. So I changed it from a retail focused model into
mm,
more like an institutional focused, big corporate focused model. So then the overall thinking at that time also been very important, the center around ecosystem building. Now that, of course, we all talk about partnership approach, ecosystem building, community based. But then early on, back in 2015, 2016, might not be something that everyone focusing into. So what I've been thinking in mind is that I do not want any singular financial services platform that become very piecemeal, that I chase for one particular transaction, one particular listing project, one particular bond transaction here and there every year. It becomes quite boring, right? Even the clients, they don't feel bored. I feel quite bored, right? So in a way, I want to create something more sticky, more consistent, sustainable. So I'm really thinking about, for example, like, talking about investment banking ahead of the time before I raise the money for a client. I'll think about, how they would want to spend the money, whether any $10 they raise, they need to spend all $10, or whether there are some leftover remaining portion that we can help to preserve the value. We can create more values. And also into each of the future steps, maybe they want to invest into something else. So we could find them the right investment target. Or maybe into the upstream, downstream, we could partner with them so that they spend less than $1 on $1 item that we can partner with them to co-invest together. So the whole idea, to keep it short, is that from investment banking we cross-sell into asset management. From asset management we cross-sell also into corporate insurance brokerage. Alongside when the client they expand their businesses into a new horizon, a new country, set up new offices, new risk exposure. That's where we find the insurance product for them. And ultimately, of course, we invest alongside the client, as we said. So that kind of formulate the early stage of the spider net. So spider is like what, right? Become very sticky, right? We connect all the dots, but then through the dots, right, through the spider web, I don't see myself giving out poison to them. I'm giving them vitamin. I'm giving them, energy, and hopefully in between each other, combine up with each other, we create more synergies for everyone.
Interesting. I think it's fascinating that since your inception, you really have this kind of analytics and big data kind of philosophy baked into your name, right? And I think in early 2015, 2016, that's not as common as it is in 2020. So interestingly, I think you've also done some pretty big IPOs in China as well. You've also been listed as the largest private investment banking setup in Asia, right?
Yeah, I think this particular description, I think sometimes somehow people not in the field might find it a little bit, interesting, but in fact it's not. I think it's something very into the history of investment banking, right? That for Asia Pac, just a few quick sentences that you in the early days, right? Back into the 90s or in the 2000, you see very actively the global investment bank or the bulge bracket, right? But now they still do very actively. But then over the recent years, right, you see also the growing out of lots of the active involvement by lots of the Chinese investment bank. In fact, most of them are state-owned by the government, but then they perform very well with the right people, right talent, right strategy. But then I think into Hong Kong, into the broader base of even for Southeast Asia or for the whole of Asia, it's actually quite different from the other side of the whole world. That let's say in the States, right, your Wall Street, of course, the origin of investment banking, you see lots of kind of like professional team-driven, commercial, type of organization, very active investment bank. So you see all this Jefferies, Moelis, Evercore. You see it from even the UK side, you have Rothschild, non-family history, heritage, but then focusing a lot into the professional team management, or including into like Green Hill, Calvin, a couple others. But you don't see quite any of such in Asia. So I think one very successful player you see that is Renaissance Capital. Of course, they've been very active from China side, now listed in Hong Kong. But then we focus a lot into something differently. That you see that when we talk about the US side, all this professional team-owned investment bank, they are actually into very strong expertise into some vertical, biotech, healthcare, financial services into any particular. But in Asia, right, especially that the overall Asia economy have been quite kind of driven and dominated by families, conglomerates, right? So they are really kind of mixed up in between of the particular characteristics of each company or company group. So I think we want to be comprehensive. I do not think of the model. One is that I'm a strong believer in ecosystem partnership. Number two is that I'm a strong believer in terms of like an open-end platform, that we don't restrict ourselves into one or the other. That I only do this, but I don't do that. I only focus in the private, but I don't focus in the public. But then I want to be wide open. But yet, I'm not going to do everything and anything. I still need to focus into the particular verticals that I choose. So that formulate, the later, development of our ecosystem. So for the financial services side, right now, we have investment banking, we have asset management, wealth management, we have our insurance brokerage, now connecting the dots, as most of you on the line would know, from Hong Kong, but also into PolicyPal, into Southeast Asia, but of course we want to expand more, but also into investment. So investment, I think no matter traditional in financial institution or for digital operator, that in China we are a major investor in the Bank of Qingdao. I sit on the board, and then we also have a partnership with Xiaomi. I think as you kindly introduced for us, the Airstar Bank now in Hong Kong, the first two virtual banks officially open for businesses, and then almost into other verticals, right? So that actually for the financial services side. Then for the non-financial services side, I still think that very much as I said, if we want to build an ecosystem, if we need to build a community, we must be a little bit more comprehensive. Not just that when I'm very bullish in financial services, then I only do those. I don't do any other things. So then I'm now also into education. I'm a strong believer of education, exactly. So I'm a strong believer into building talents, grooming talents. Thinking really about that. Not thinking for the current point in time. Honestly, it's really thinking about much longer time. Into the future. That if I want any organization, my organization to be strong, resilient, and have the right talents, I must kind of like prepare, ourselves and prepare, for the market, prepare for the community.
For sure. Yeah.
So now that for education, for talents, we've been doing the following. One is that we have with the Hong Kong Polytechnic University, we created the first Fintech school in Hong Kong. So this Fintech school now is not just an institute or program, but it officially giving out PhD degree in Fintech. So the first class already commenced. The second class we are about to put a closure to a new student intake. So please, anyone interested, please come to check it out. And then other than that, probably many of you would know that a few weeks ago we announced the XC program. So the XC program is the AXSI. The A is as an AMTD, X is Xiaomi, and the S is SMU, and also I is ISS at NUS. So together with the two university breadth of their knowledge, we created this digital finance leadership program. So we announced this at the World Economic Forum at Davos early on this year, but now officially received the approval from the Ministry of Education. Now that we will give this out and commit ourselves, we're really putting this out to be a 5 years long-term program to groom the next talent. And the next thing that we just recently rolled out is actually with the Singapore Fintech Association SFA is the AMTD SFA Global Fellowship Program. So each year, starting this year, we will handpick no more than 10 entrepreneurs. We will support them. We will give them money token. We will open up exposure for them. We will bring them round trip to different fintech festivals in the world. We will roll them into the different education programs that we organized and hosted so that they become very comprehensive. So a little bit like the Young Global Leader program for World Economic Forum. That we want to groom the right leader, fintech or digital space for the whole of Asia.
I think that's fascinating. I mean, that's really the next generation. If we don't groom them right now, then there is no talent for the digital financial services space, right? Okay, I mean, Calvin, I want to go back a little bit about the Airstar Bank, which was recently launched in Hong Kong. Can you walk us through the experience you have setting up a virtual bank in Hong Kong? There's also a question from the audience as well, so I'll kind of include that as well. One of the audience members asking, with 10% shareholding in Airstar Bank, how involved is AMTD in the build-up and running of the bank? So it's a two-part question.
Sure.
Your experience in setting up and how involved AMTD is. Please.
Sure. I think the setup experience on an overall basis is extraordinary. I think you might not find many people surrounding you, anyone on the line listening right now, or for you, Vincent, that so many people, right? But then, for people actually start from scratch, from the day of applying for it, submitted the first application, rounds of questions, independent assessment. Then finally, you got the day that when I hold the license paper on my hand, right? And then when we start to interview the first candidate, and onward to over 150 candidates that we interview. And now they formulated a team over 100 people for this Airstar Bank. but still managed it to be the one of the least loss making. Out of all 8 virtual banks in Hong Kong, of course, no one have officially commenced operation by the end of last year. So of course, it's all costing. But then we manage cost-wise very wisely. So now that I think it's the second one up and running, officially open for businesses. So I think the whole experience has been extraordinary. But one thing that I see the most challenge or the most important, of course, for anyone next to create the next digital bank, I think will be talents. I mean, it's pretty much like a talent war, I would say, that we go out there to grab every talent. But how to find the best talent or the right talent is not just about the individual, simple caliber, the experience, before that, or how they only showing different kinds of commitment, but it's really about their overall know-how into both the tech and the fin space. So whether it's the fintech or tech fin, we always debate a bit along that. But when you see that, Hong Kong, I mean, similar to Singapore, the two cities, the two places, you see a whole lot of banking professional with significant amount of experience, right? But those are people very senior and up on the ladder. But then, how well they kind of pick up or in terms of, embracing the overall digitalization or disruption is something that I think everyone is still finding or mapping out the best team. So we are very happy that, for Airstar Bank, we see very stable, staffing. But then some other banks, I think in the public domain, you will see that they see quite a bit of turnover. So really finding about the right team and tuning the right mode, the right setup. I think that's how I see it. Then going to the question from the audience, right? We stay very thankful. I stay very thankful to Mr. Lei Jun, Mr. Hong Fong, and also the whole of the Xiaomi team. I think honestly, comparing in size, of course, we are still trying very hard, growing ourselves, from tier 1.5 onward, to building out our enterprises. But then on overall basis, Xiaomi, even though they are so huge and gigantic, but in fact, they also grow very fast. I respect them a lot. In fact, when I grow this out alongside 4 years into 5 years, but then they only grow it out, I think in 10 years time, they become a Fortune 500 company, right? So I think there is a lot of items that we are learning from them. But yet at the same time, for the Hong Kong market, I think the know-how about the local financial services industry knowledge, and also how we run regulated businesses in Hong Kong for so long, and also the connectivity, really when we talk about the ecosystem approach, how we connect the dots with lots of the conglomerates, corporates in the local space. I think something that we contribute and work very closely with Xiaomi. And if you look a little bit into the AMTD shareholders group, now that we still have Chung Kong as our shareholder at the group level, but multiple layer, you now see the presence of different families or conglomerates across Asia. The Henderson Land, Mr. Peter Lee, he is our shareholder. We feel very proud. And we also have Sun Hung Kai. We also have Regal. We also have Vice Consortium. We also have different others, right? And I think across border base, we also have institutional name like Morgan Stanley Private Equity and also value partners that we also work very closely with. And I think the 10%, 90%, I think is the first time we partner with Xiaomi. Then onward, you see that, for the other digital ventures that now we partner with Xiaomi, with lots of trust from them, we are stepping up the shareholding and taking up more of the overall leadership. But in fact, I mean, just to close off this topic, for the Airstar Bank, we are very glad that with lots of trust from Xiaomi, the CEO, was sent in by AMTD. So Dr. Frederick Lau, he has so much experience previously with the US regulator and also with the Hong Kong Monetary Authority as a banking supervision head. So he is also a vice chairman of AMTD. So I think having the only executive director on the board and the CEO, we are actually with lots of trust with Xiaomi, partnership with them. We involve very closely in running the bank.
Thank you. That's a very comprehensive answer. And to your point about talent in Hong Kong, I think especially during the early period when everybody just got the approval from HKMA, there was a rush for talent, right? And everybody's considering, oh, should we get overseas talent? Should we get Hong Kong talent? And I think similarly in Singapore, you'll see the same thing. And we're really seeing a lot of bankers being pinched by virtual banks to hire to their virtual the digibanks in Singapore as well, right? But I guess the question is also
news surrounding that as well, right?
yeah, and then like there's also the question of, like you said, the tech and the fin. So when you bring in these bankers, will they bring in the legacy thinking? Do you need to bring in new blood? So there's a lot of consideration in talent, which definitely is a lot of challenge for a lot of the banks. But your partnership with Xiaomi was really interesting, because I remember when I saw the list of consortiums, I was like, oh, Xiaomi, AMTD, because I was very fascinated with a lot of the work they did in India, and I'm really interested to see where you guys will take Airstar Bank in the next few years. So I want to move on to the next question. So from Hong Kong, you're moving to Singapore, and recently you announced the name of your digibank in Singapore, which is Singabank. So give us a sense of what your vision is for Singabank, and how what you've learned from Hong Kong plays into Singabank.
Sure. I think I will talk a bit more about surrounding the overall digital platform that we are building, but not that much into the particular Singabank, since of course it's still in application. I think on an overall basis, I see that the current time opportunity is really that I always kind of call it the time zero opportunity. So not even into day one. That now everyone, even though we are so much into the digital age, the overall digitalization pace get a lot faster because of COVID-19 and everything. But then still that, in terms of the different digital major financial services licenses, right, they're still very much restricted into the particular places, right? So for the Hong Kong Airstar, the digital bank license, it allows us to operate in Hong Kong and serving Hong Kong people, Hong Kong companies, but not outside of Hong Kong. But of course, same thing, I think, for any licenses, for Singapore, for Malaysia, for any other different places, right? But ultimately, it's still not yet into the kind of concept of whether I have a digital bank and I open a digital branch elsewhere. But of course, we really don't need it because it's digital space, right? It's supposed to be all seamless, right? So ultimately, that of course is we respect that is a highly regulated businesses, banking industry. It's really important that we, if you want to be successful, I don't believe it in, as I mentioned before, that it's very much restricted into one place, one country, one particular venture. So it must be connecting the dots. I think maybe not everywhere, but maybe into the major markets that one intend to operate, or from our end how we intend to operate. So you pick up the right point. It's really surrounding that maybe for the different places, resources of the overall network, not only for ourselves but maybe for Xiaomi, but maybe for our different other partners, right? So what are the places that we have more leverages into that we could build out something meaningfully to have not only on an influential basis, but really hardcore in terms of how we can contribute and how we can provide values to the end customers, right? So I think user experience is something we focus a lot into, and that is actually one big item by Xiaomi. I think we all know. So I think on an overall basis, I think what we are seeing it is that first of all, I need to find a place, the place that will provide me with lots of talents, lots of innovative power, lots of entrepreneurship spirit, and then to kind of become quite wide open in a way that I could connect from it into different places, right? So I picked Singapore for our overall digital venture that we see it as very universal through Singapore into the rest of Southeast Asia, and Hong Kong and Singapore also working very in good partnership, even though some people will think competition, but competition also brings partnership. I think in this world it's really about collaborative powers, right? So how we see it that for first of all for the headquarter base will be important that we set it forth for Singapore. I think it's AMTD Digital. Then secondly, then how we build it out. I think I need some good building out of the overall model. As we said that I'm not just into one particular country or one particular vertical. So in terms of the overall, I'm into not only digital bank, but digital bank, digital insurance, payment, digital asset exchange, or into different other verticals. You can kind of into many sub verticals, right? You look into overall any kind of fintech mapping. But then of course into the major tools and items that we are focusing into, right? So I think this is something that we are not just doing it in one country, and it doesn't mean that I think for people not understanding about the whole vision, It's not about, we only doing it this into Singapore. We'll do it in the major markets that we have strong belief into, that we intend to operate. So now that you see Hong Kong, you see Singapore, but we also mentioned about some other different places. So stay watch, right? So we will be into different areas of space. And the same similar model of building out of our overall digital solution power will be continuing.
Well, we'll be watching with great interest. And I think you mentioned some of the verticals. You have the digital insurance, you have the payments, and the digital asset exchange, which is directly the acquisitions that you made recently, right? PolicyPal, FOMO Pay, and Capbridge. So what is the synergy over there? Like what made you look at these companies and think, hey, these are suitable acquisition partners? And a follow-up to that question is also, what are the next potential acquisitions that you're looking at for AMTD Group?
Sure. I think, not that much different from how I think. In fact, I might think quite simple way, right? So everything that I think is surrounding talents, right? So nothing that I could perform and go it out, from the overall AMTD simply by myself or even by our existing team. I think it's really about into different markets. First of all, I believe in several important principles. One is I need talents, but talents that are very global. Global means they are very global, but yet they are very local. So I always believe in localization, but yet I want people with kind of like international mindset or a wide overall set of mindsets. That's number one. And number two, I think we are finding the right people, the right talents for the particular sub-vertical that we are focusing into. So I think very glad that we've been able to work with the few companies. I think you just mentioned. I think FOMO Pay, PolicyPal, Capbridge. But I feel more excited not just about the particular company. Of course, they're a great company or with lots of potential, I would say. But in fact, it's really about the talent. So the talents bring in more talents. The talents bring in more depth of knowledge, local know-how, but they also bring in new ideas, right? Thinking.
Sure.
So I think only by doing that and connecting the dots is really about people connecting as well. Then we will be able to build a greater, better AMTD. So I think onward to the next acquisition, I think anything that could help me to build my spider net into a greater form, providing more synergies within the members of the spider net, or adding on more fundamental or core set of tools to support my solution overall building, or anything help me with in terms of the community building, or in terms of how I see customer acquisition. On an overall basis, I will be looking into. So I think also thanks to the leadership of SFA and also MAS as from the regulator side or the government side. I think I treasure a lot the opportunity to partner with the right people, with the right institution to do the right thing at the right time. So I think the AMTD solidarity scheme of arrangement. I think I feel a lot happy of doing that. I think there are actually lots of reason doing it. The reason is really being that we want to connect with the community. We want to have the single touch and connectivity with each and everyone. And I could tell you that the good news is that in this several days, we have already sent out the first batch of letter, but already over 200 companies got the grants. It might be smaller amount. It might be more or smaller than the amount they expect, but it's a grant. It's something that we give it out to support and anchor the fintech community building at the special moment in time. It might not cover everything that they need, or maybe just cover for particular months or weeks of time or particular period of time. I think it's really about solidarity. So I think solidarity into also another point very important. I think it's really about how we do more. Seeing the aggregate of power, or how we build, kind of like one connected platform. One connected platform doesn't mean that it needs to be kind of like all into AMTD. It could be how my platform connect with yours, right, Vincent, for example, right? So it's really about interlinking each of our different ecosystem to build a more connected solidarity, overall community.
So with all these spider net initiatives, I wonder if you're building towards your friendly neighborhood bank. Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah. So I think we have time for maybe 2 or 3 more questions, and I'll try to combine and condense some of the questions from the audience. Some of the questions actually link back to your recent Solidarity Fund, your partnership with the universities. So one of the audience members is asking, with the recent alliances in Singapore, is it part of a marketing effort to raise the profile for the application? Will you guys still go ahead if it does not get the license? Is one of the questions from the audience.
Sure. I think it's a very interesting question, right? In a way that I think everything that you do as an organization wouldn't be for a single purpose, right? If it's for a single purpose, I think doing anything like that, it will be quite costly. That you do free controlling stake acquisition. 4 years ago, I started to support Singapore Fintech Festival. We are actually the founding partner. So I think it's really, I have a crystal ball looking ahead of time, that I know that the digital license will be coming out, that 4 years ago we start investing. So people's maybe quite interesting that you might love to connect with anyone online, become friends and part of the ecosystem connectivity. But then I think I always eyeing different markets that I see, no matter for Singapore, for Hong Kong, we have been investing quite a lot. And I think on overall basis, we even invest more than that. I think maybe people might not pick up that you talk about what is marketing. So last year we spent 300 million Sing to buy a building in Singapore. So I bought the building from OUE. Now we name as AMTD Singapore building, AMTD Oakwood Premier. So be my guest, anyone on the line, right? Go there, say my name, get a discount, right? So I think I would think that anyone wouldn't doing all this for marketing, right? I think of course any company building out, of course there will be branding, profiling, overall kind of like front facing into the market. How you build out your overall key principle to live it out, not just externally, but also to the company, within the company. Tone at the top, how we spirit, set forth, as an entrepreneurship spirit, we uphold, from AMTD side. So I think, everything that my answer is actually very simple. We look into consistency. We look into sustainability. So Vincent, you and I, we can do another webinar. Maybe 12 months from now, 24 months from now. So then you will see lots and lots of efforts that we continue to invest, not only into the places that we now have strong belief into, but continuously into those places, but also into some new dimensions. So my eye into the overall opportunities, I could tell all of you, far more aggressive than you see. It's not just Hong Kong, it's not just Singapore, it's not just Asia, but we are eyeing global. So if you're talking about marketing efforts, maybe yes, right? But then we'll do it on a global basis.
I think it would be unthinkable to spend such an amount purely for marketing. Of course, there is some marketing elements, but purely for marketing, just the amount, it would blow my mind if that's what you guys were doing. So let's move on to the next question. So this next question is about route to profitability and also how to differentiate yourselves from others. So to put it together, this question is, number one, do you see any challenge to profitability in Singapore for your digibank? And number two, how do you plan to differentiate yourself? So after this question, we'll ask a final question and then we'll close off the session. Go ahead, Calvin. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think this question is a bit tricky, not tricky in terms of the question itself, but because it's actually become a little bit secret, right? Commercial secret, right?
Yeah.
So we exactly tell you how we get ourselves into the particular kind of like overall building out of it. Those are of course a secret recipe, right? But I would tell you that what I strongly believe into, or the core theme into running any digital organization, no matter it's digital bank or different digital ventures, again, right? I believe in terms of one-stop holistic solution. So we wouldn't offer anything piecemeal. We wouldn't offer anything broken link. It will be very comprehensive. That's number one. And number two, I think what I could say is that it's actually very ecosystem partnership approach that we will adopt. That we will have many friends, right? So hopefully on the line, maybe new friends or not yet friends, and can become my friends as well. But then of course we need more friends, and we will have lots of friends. That's number two. And number three, I think, is in terms of talents. So our secret weapon, in fact, I could review it now, is actually people. It's actually how the tactical mindset, how we sustainable commitment. I think all these are our secret weapon.
Wonderful. And suppose there are some friends who are on the line now and they would like to get in touch with the AMTD Group. How would these friends go about getting in touch with the group for potential?
Well, the best is for Vincent you to connect the dots. But if not, find me on LinkedIn or I'm sure that there are so many common friends, right? So please outreach to me. I'm always available because I don't sleep. I sleep only every day, 3 to 4 hours at max, right? So most of the time you can find me.
Oh my, I don't know how you survive with 3 to 4 hours. So I will leave my email in the comments. If you guys want to get in touch, send me an email and I'll forward it to the AMTD group. So I have one last question before we close off the session, and I'll combine this with one of the questions that the audience is asking. So one of the audience member is asking what other markets you're looking at. And for me personally, because I handle the Malaysian editorial a lot, I also want to know about what are your Malaysian plans as well. So it's a two-part question. Calvin, please go ahead.
Sure. I think I cannot be too restrictive or too picky now, as I could tell you very truthfully that I think any markets that offer me opportunities or I find the right partners for the right market, then those are the market that I want to get involved. This is not something kind of like of a playful question that I answered kind of indirectly, but it's true, right? So think about countries that when you see when Vincent you mentioned about India, for example. So when you see that Xiaomi being the #1 handset brand there in India, and of course lots of involvement already in some fintech exposure, then I think I could tell you that we are also very bullish into building out the linkage between us, different markets from Asia and with India overall. So you see that, last week we signed a strategic cooperation with Global Linker as one example.
Yes.
I think on overall basis, I think, but if you ask me, I still would want to give you the answer. We want to look into get involved in Malaysia. We want to get involved and already have some good linkage into Vietnam. So I think into markets, I think with lots of energy, with lots of momentum, are the markets that we want to get involved.
Wonderful. Well, that's it for the show today. With that, it only leaves me the honor of thanking Calvin for joining us today, and also all of you as well for tuning in. There's nearly 300 of you tuning in Facebook and YouTube. Thank you for joining us. If you enjoyed the show, do consider liking and subscribing. Feel free to also give us feedback on how we can improve. You can reach out to us at editorial@fintechnews.my. And if you'd like to connect with the AMTD Group, you can drop a line to the email. Stay tuned for the next episodes as we've lined up some interesting guests for you over the next few months. Once again, thank you for joining us and have a wonderful day ahead.
Thank you, Vincent. Thank you, everyone online.
Thank you.